So, David, you were born in Tijuana in 1983 and studied at the Centro de Capitano Cinematográfica in Mexico City, supported by Fonca. So, how did growing up in Tijuana and studying at CCC shape your voice as a filmmaker?
Well, first of all, Tijuana is a border city, so I think that it has influences from many parts of Mexico because people from all over the country come from all over the world. As far as I remember, is the most busy border city in the world. So it has a very peculiar energy. It has a wall that divides the city with the United States. It has the ocean, but next to the ocean is a wall. So that for me is a big contrast. It's a city of contrasts. And I think that this shaped my perception of not only my own reality and the place where I was living. I think it gave me a very different perspective. I think I owe many things of my creative interests, of my creative life to Tijuana because it's peculiar, it's unique, it's surreal. Again, like I said, I grew up with the ocean on one hand and then the border wall on the other hand in front of me, both. And I also grew with a feeling of not belonging because Tijuana is a city that stays very much in the middle of nowhere. It's very far away from the rest of the country. It's next to the US. So it's a mixture of cultures of two different cultures. And I think that this sense of not belonging is something that marked me profoundly. I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. Tijuana is like an island, it's a place of its own. Very peculiar place in the best way possible.
Okay, okay. And your study in the CCC, Centro de Capitano Cinematográfica.
Yes. Yes, when I after I finished high school, I came to live to Mexico City and I studied in film school here in Centro de Capacitación Cinematográfica. And I think that this is also a very special school. Is the as far as I know, is the only school in the world that gives students all the equipment they need to make their films, gives students money to make their films. And I think that film school gives you, first of all, the technical requirements to make a film. And it gives you the possibility of messing things up, of exploring. It gives you the possibility of creating collaboration with other people who have the same passion as you. I don't believe that film school is for everyone, but in my case, it gave me fundamentals, it gave me technique. I appreciate many things that film school gave me, but also I've learned as the years go by that there are many things that I've had to unlearn, that I've had to distance myself from, that I don't need anymore. At that moment, I think film school gave me tools, important tools, but not all of these tools or all of these learnings I need to keep. Many things I have to let go.
Okay, okay, brilliant. So your first feature, Life After, premiered at the Venice Biennale. So how did that early experience influence your confidence in creative direction as a filmmaker?
It's very strange for me to talk about my previous works because I think that I am always questioning what I did. I am always being critical of what I did. I think that the only way to learn and to be a better filmmaker is to analyze your work and dissect your work and be critical of your work. In a way, it has to be a balance of criticism, but also of of understanding what was well done, what didn't work so much. So when I turn back to my first film, to my first feature, I always have mixed feelings. I I understand why I made that film. I can still feel the heart of the film, but I think that at the time it was so personal that I wasn't able to fully uh, to have taken it fully to where I think it could have. I see the ideas, I see the essence, I see the heart, but I think there is a part missing because of how attached, how close it was for me at the time. This film, it was way too personal. I've learned that when something is too personal, you need some distance, you need some understanding, outside understanding of this situation and how to deal with it. So I am very fond of that film. I learned a lot from that film. I got the possibility of having the film produced by my film school here in Mexico, but I very rarely see this film anymore. Or I have to say, with any of my films, is the same. I'm always critical. I understand now what things I like, what things I don't like, what things worked, what things didn't work. But at least I can say with all of them, I feel the heart. I understand who I was at that moment. I understand why I made this film, and I know what I can take from it, what things I will change. And so for me, it's a constant dialogue. For me, everything that I am doing, I want to keep pushing further with my film ideas. And I realize now that these ideas constantly change. So, in essence, what I understood the most from my first film, The Life After, is the structure, how a feature film works, how to fully sustain a piece that is meant to be longer, that is meant to be an hour and a half or more. So what that film gave me the most is what I learned the most from that film is the idea of rhythm, how to manipulate rhythm, how to change rhythm, how to make contrasts. I think it was my first real incursion into the professional world, and this is the main learning that I got from it: rhythm, how to understand rhythm.
So I'll talk about your other film as well, previous work. So with the chosen one, you adapted to a script by George Volpe, but infused it with your own vision, resulting in selection at Cannes and Sebastian jury. Could you walk us through your creative process in reshaping the screenplay into the film?
So the chosen ones shifted its form in many ways. It originally was a screenplay written by Jorge Volpi, and the original screenplay was very different from the actual film. Uh, Volpi and the producer of that film, Pablo Cruz, shared this screenplay with me. They said, "We're interested in collaborating with you for this film." I was immediately interested in the theme. I was interested in what the film was talking about, but I felt that the screenplay, I didn't connect completely with that screenplay. So I started co-writing with Jorge Volpi, and then for many reasons, he moved to another country. The film stopped its process for a few months, and in those months where I studied the most the subject about women trafficking, at that moment is when I realized the actual shape that the film had to take. I realized what the process should be. So I decided to write completely a new screenplay from scratch. I talked with Volpe, I talked with Pablo Cruz, they were fine with it. And what I did is I only kept the idea of the theme. I kept the names of the main characters, and that's it. The rest of the story completely changed into what is the film right now. And I think that this process was deeply influenced by reality. This writing process was deeply influenced by reality because I took inspiration from many of the real life stories that I listened. I took inspiration on how these families that traffic women work, how these families uh, work not only in terms of business, but also how they work in the inside, how they teach their sons to behave, how they teach their daughters to be complicit and behave in this world. So there were many fascinating elements. Reality was very important. Investigation for reality was very important in writing this screenplay. And I think that this life, that the life, the real life stories that I discovered were essential. So I ended up writing a new screenplay where the characters were way younger. The main the main girl is 13 years old. Uh, the son of this family that traffics women is very young, 15 years old, because I realized how young the victims are. So not only I changed the story, and I was inspired by all these real life stories that I listened. I also took the story to Tijuana, which is my city, which is the place where I grew up. And this was for me a way to connect in a personal level with what I was writing, and also give Tijuana is a place where this subject matter is very important. This is a city where organizations know that Tijuana is a city where trafficking is a big deal. So I thought it was important to take it to a personal level, but also to talk about a place where this issue is very important. This is a big deal. So reality influenced this process a lot. And the last thing I'll say about this process is that by listening to the real life stories and understanding the horror of what I was portraying, is that I decided not to show any explicit sex scenes. I did not to show any of the violence of the sexual violence, because I thought it was not necessary, and it would have been disrespectful with the subject matter, with the victims, to show this. So this was a very important ethical and artistic decision that started from the very beginning when I was writing the screenplay.
So let's talk about your latest project, En El Camino, which will premiere at Venice Horizontal section. So your journey towards En El Camino became with a documentary on truckers for Channel 22. So what was it about that nomadic world or its story that transformed into a dramatic vision for the screen?
It was chance that I discovered. It was by chance that I discovered the world of truck drivers. I think it's fascinating. I think it's unique. I think there are many elements also in Mexico that make it even more unique, because in Mexico we're dealing with violence on the roads, we're dealing with insecurity, we're dealing with working schedules that are not regulated. So truck drivers can work for weeks or months without stopping, without having any real rest. I discovered the rules of the world of the truck stops, of the highways, of the road restaurants. and I thought it was a very peculiar environment, a very masculine environment, a very hostile environment. I fell in love with this world and with the stories of the men of the road who live a nomad life, who are used to traveling constantly. And I thought that in such a masculine world, in such a harsh environment, it would be interesting to tell a love story between two men with the rules, with the very specific rules of this world. I connected deeply with this environment and with the idea of searching for a father figure in this environment, because one of my main characters is searching, in a way, for his father in the world of truck drivers.
So, how did you find producer for En El Camino? So, was there any co-production involved, any funds? I can see like Diego Luna is among the producer, and how did you meet him? Who did you know him?
Well, the main producer for this film is Ina Payan. Her company is called Animal de Luz. And she came to me a few years ago saying that she wanted to collaborate. And when I started developing this project, I thought about her. I thought she would be a good ally. We got funding, partial funding for the film here in Mexico. Then we got the CNC support, a French support. We got money from France. And then right before beginning the shooting of the film, which we shot last year, October and November, we were short money. We were short of money, and we decided to present the screenplay to Diego Luna, who I know, who Ina knows well. And Diego read the screenplay. He connected with it strongly, and he decided to step on board as a co-producer. So he's our co-producer with La Corriente del Golfo, which is his producing company here in Mexico. Then we also got another co-producer for post-production here in Mexico, which is the Maestros.
Brilliant. So, you cast non-professional actors. So, embracing from Nusat Jores, if I'm pronouncing it correct, embracing their accent and lived experience. So, how does this deepen the story authenticity and emotional resonance?
I love working with non-actors, especially because of the tone that I am looking for, because of the atmosphere that I am looking for. But I think that the ideal world is to mix actors and non-actors. I also worked with a lot of non-actors because I was shooting in the north, in Chihuahua, where the accents are very specific, where there's a very specific tone, a very specific reality, and I wanted to capture that. I wanted to, in a way, get a documentary feeling in the film, even though the film is highly stylized at moments. I wanted the tone, the way the my actors are directed. I wanted to achieve with them a great naturalism that it could feel at times as a documentary. So I worked with a casting director who is a fixer here in Mexico. His name is Eduardo Giralt. And he basically went to Ciudad Juarez, which is where we shot the film. He went there for 5 months with his assistant. And they were looking everywhere in the city, in very specific places, mostly in the outskirts of the city, in areas that are uh, that have problems with violence, with insecurity. And I wanted we were looking for a young man from this environment who ideally would be openly gay, which was very difficult to find because in these places, gay men are not open about their sexuality because it can be dangerous even for them to be open about their sexuality. So it was a very long casting process, and we divided it in various stages. So at first, all Eduardo would do was arrive, see a person who could be interesting. He would ask this person for an interview. I always like to listen to the people's story, their life stories. I think it's important to get a sense of who they are, of what is their background, their emotional background, how they see life. So, besides asking them their life story to tell us their life story, however long or short they want to tell it, it doesn't matter, but we want to listen to how they tell their stories. And then we ask specific questions about the reality, about life, about what they fear, what they want, what they desire in life, what are their goals. I think it's important, like I said, to get a sense of who these people are. And there I get a sense of their inner world, their inner life. And if I see something interesting and something that connects with the character, besides the fact that they can have an interesting face, then I ask them to come for a second round of casting, in which we ask them to play, we ask them to improvise a few scenes, and see how open they are to collaborating and to doing things in front of the camera just for fun. And then we have a last round of casting, which is now working with scenes, now giving them a few scenes so that they can memorize and see how they interact and see how they feel now that they have to memorize a few lines. For this final part of the process, I am always present there with the camera. I like to be with the camera. I like to be the one that is photographing them. I give them directions. I give them indications. I I see how much they listen, how much they are able to change what they're doing with my directions. So it's a very long process. It takes patience. A lot of it takes a lot of moment from me of time for me to see also what the chemistry between the different actors on screen seem like. I originally wanted to work only with non-actors, but then for the role of the trucker, of the truck driver, it was very difficult to cast real truck drivers because they don't have defined schedules. They are traveling all the time. They don't know where they are going to be tomorrow or the next week. So I worked with the non-actors that I found for this role. I discovered two people that were very interesting, but one of them was incarcerated, and the other one who is he had an addiction to crystal meth. He basically disappeared. And then I realized that if I had an actor for this role, this actor will help me unite everyone in the cast. He will be the guiding force in my cast, and he will be a great ally. So this is why I say that always to have a mix of actors and non-actors is for me the best possibility in the world. We casted this actor who I thought was brilliant, and he fully went for it. He worked with truckers. He learned to drive a truck. He learned what life on the road was like. And most importantly, he was a great ally for all of my non-actors. He helped, in a way, pull everyone together. And I think that when you work with non-actors, it is essential to have a process with them. You cannot just go directly to the shooting and start filming. You need to give them tools. You need to have them understand what the process is. You need to have them become a team. I think this is one of the most important things of the process prior to shooting with non-actors, that in this workshop that I like to do always with non-actors, which is a month and a half long, in this workshop they become a team, they become collaborators, they learn to trust each other. So for me, the essence of the film is in that workshop. Once I got my casting together, I had my two protagonists work for a long time from Monday to Saturday for a month and a half. First of all, doing improvisation, learning acting techniques, but also, and this is very important, with my acting coach, who is Patricia Ortiz, this is her name, to dissect the screenplay, to have them understand the words of the screenplay, to have them understand the logic of the arc of the characters, to have them understand the logic of the scene, what is a transition of the character from scene to scene. So we do also a lot of screenplay analysis with them, with the main actors. So as you can see, it's a long process, and I always tell my producers that I like to take a long time casting, which I said on this occasion it was 5 months, and then a month and a half for preparation. And it's a very exhaustive work because we need to arrive to the set fully prepared. It was a very complicated shooting because of the locations, because we had to be inside a truck, and it's very complicated to film inside a truck. Uh, there were many difficulties, and we needed to arrive to the set as prepared as we could.
So while making El Camino, so what was the most difficult challenge you faced, like in terms of making the film?
So for making En El Camino, I think that the biggest difficulty on set was the security issue. I have to say we were shooting in a very complicated place, Juarez and Chihuahua. It's Juarez and its surroundings, and we needed to have constantly police protection wherever we went to. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be okay. And we knew beforehand which locations were difficult in terms of security. But this situation changed constantly because one day this location can be safe, but the next day it won't, and vice versa. Suddenly, one location which was impossible for us, then it became available. So we had to have this mobility in terms of the shooting schedule to say, okay, we have to change this location, and this could happen from one day to the next. We have to change this location. Where are we going? We always had to have plan A, B, and C, and because again, for security issues, sometimes we had to change locations, but also we were shooting in locations that are alive, in locations that have their own schedules, that have their own routines, that are places packed with people, many of them. So to go to a location where you cannot contain it, where you cannot close this location just for the shoot, but you have to adjust to the life of the location, this is complicated. You have to be very flexible and very open to how to shoot in this place. So this process was very much alive. I knew that I could arrive with planning for a day of shoot, but maybe it wouldn't work. Maybe I would have to change absolutely everything. So I would say this was the most complicated part, having to change locations sometimes with only one day in advance, and going to locations that are very much alive and that are full with people and that we cannot close for the shoot, and we have to adjust. This was the most difficult.
So now the film is going to be shown in Venice. So how are you? Like, are you excited? Are you nervous to shoot the film?
Yes, I am very excited about presenting the film in Venice. Of course, there's always a mixture of feelings. I there's always anxiety. There's always nervousness. It's like a roller coaster. You feel many things at the same time. It's always like that. It's always been like that for me. There's also joy of letting the film go, joy of letting the film have its own life. What I am the most proud of is that I made a film in which I fully believe, and I made it how I wanted to make it. I wasn't shy about presenting certain scenes or presenting certain realities. I did it exactly like I imagined it in my head. I did it with the word is unapologetic. And when I see the film, I think that no one else could have done it, because all my obsessions, all my way of looking at this world, at this specific environment is very present. So I see myself in the film, and I see my obsessions, and I see the essence of what I wanted to portray. Of course, nothing is exactly the same as you imagine it in your head. It's impossible to translate it 100% the same, but the essence is there. And this is what makes me very happy and excited and grateful.
So let's talk about your favorite films. Like, are there like your favorite films and filmmakers that have influenced you a lot in general? Like four or five favorite films of yours
Okay.
or filmmakers.
So, my favorite films. I just actually saw this one recently, Come and See, Russian film. I learned so much from this film. It's brilliant in many levels, on a technical level, on a emotional level. The directing of this film takes my breath away. The precision of the acting, the intensity of the acting. Of course, I know that the director hypnotized his protagonist for many scenes of the film. And when I see this film, I see someone who is taking any risk necessary to achieve what he wants. He's exploring also the cinematic language, but he's doing it with a very clear purpose of punching the audience in the gut. It's not just technique for the sake of technique, it's a technique with an emotional intent. And I think it's without a doubt one of the most powerful films I've seen in my life. It's beautiful and horrifying at the same time. And this is very difficult to achieve. To be able to say both things about a film is beautiful and horrible. I think it's a work of art. I think it's the most powerful film made about war. Then another favorite film of mine, it's Persona by Ingmar Bergman. I think he might be still my favorite filmmaker because I've always connected with his stories. I've always connected with his intensity as well, and with his intimacy, his very intimate approach to people. I think he was also a brilliant actor director. And Persona for me, it's a film that has everything. Again, in terms of cinematic language, it broke it broke many barriers. It was, I think, this is one of those films that there is a before and after, not only for the director but also for cinema. I think that this film holds up incredibly well 60 years later or more. And I've learned a lot. What I've learned from Bergman, and this is probably my favorite of his stylistic choices, is his use of close-up. he loved faces, and he loved photographing faces in silence. Nothing is said with words, but everything is said with the eyes. And he has, not only in Persona, but in many of his other films, he has some of the most beautiful close-ups that I can remember. So his use of close-up impacted me enormously. Uh, Another film that I love, and that for me is very important, is Lovers on the Bridge by Leos Carax. And what I love about this director is he's also he makes bold choices when directing in terms of cinematic language. He's not shy, he's not afraid of making evident the camera movement evident or the editing evident. But again, he's always pushing for emotion. He can be a little bit more intellectual, but the emotion shines through. I guess this is, now that I am thinking out loud, this is something that I look for always in a film. A strong point of view from the director. I like to see a film that has a unique tone, that has a unique atmosphere, that has a unique storytelling, that has a powerful camera movement, uh, frame composition. I like directors that make strong statements with their filmmaking. And Carax is always making strong statements with his films. And I also think that Lovers on the Bridge, it's a film that is very, you can see an author doing it, you can see many bold choices in the film, but at the same time it can be a film that can be available for bigger audiences, for them, for the big public, not only film festival goers. And this is also something that I've always tried to do with my films, to make films that are available for everyone, for the film audience, for the film world, the film critics, but for the cinephiles, but also to the bigger audience. Uh, so Leos Carax has been a great influence in my filmmaking aspirations.
So, David, my last question is like there are a lot of aspiring filmmakers all over the world. So, in your filmmaking journey, like what advice would you give to them if they want to become a filmmaker?
So the best advice that I can give anyone who is trying to make films, patience, to have patience, because this is a very complicated business, a very complicated medium where you cannot control many things. You can control your artistic vision, you can control your work, what you do, either when you're writing by yourself or when you're on set, but the rest is out of your hands. When you get the financing, when can you do, when can you achieve your next project, all of that you cannot control. So you need to be very patient. You need to be always open to learning. You never stop learning in filmmaking. It's a process that never stops. So you have to be always curious. You have to be always looking for more films, more books, or music to fill yourself with art. Not, and of course, keep going back to the classics, which this is essential, this is formative. but also to see what is happening now, to be looking, to be also curious creatively. And for me, the biggest learning as a director is to watch a film with an audience, to watch it with people who don't care if this specific shot was very complicated, if it took this long. They only feel it, and they feel if it doesn't work or if it doesn't work. So when you watch your film with an audience, you get a real sense of what you did. And this is the best learning experiences because there's no lying there. They will, you feel it. You feel the room, you feel the audience. And when you feel that, there's no way that you can lie to yourself. And sometimes it can be uncomfortable to watch film with an audience. When it works, it's beautiful. When it doesn't work, it's uncomfortable. But this is an experience that you have to live, because this is where you'll fully understand what you did. You'll fully understand what works and what doesn't work. And this is the only way to keep getting better. If you are critical of your work, you need to be critical of your work. You cannot sugarcoat anything. It's the only way to keep advancing and keep reading about filmmaking, keep reading in general, keep yourself curious.